rebounds. For our last segment, before we wrap up the show, we'll be going over my first of the college basketball season, my first National Player of the Year ladder. So I'm going to give you guys my top 10 players, in my opinion, on who I think leads the National Player of the Year rankings right now and who my top 10 is. So without any further ado, we'll jump right into it. We'll start at number 10. At number 10, I got James Akinjo from Baylor. What he's been able to do for the Bears this season, I think he's been their all-around their best player for the number one team in the country. Fran Fraschilla had a tremendous comparison on when Baylor took on Iowa State a week ago. He compared him to college basketball's Kyle Lowry, and I think that was a tremendous comparison. Very similar play types. 14.4 points, 6.1 assists, 2.5 rebounds, 2.2 steals, a gritty player, plays good defense, and can shoot too, shooting 41.4% from three this season. He's been an all-around great player, a guy who was a big recruit coming into Georgetown, played well at Georgetown, but was not on a great Georgetown team. Tried his luck at Arizona, didn't really have so much success at Arizona, and now has finally found a home with Baylor. So you like to see it. He's only a junior too, so he could have 2 more years after this of eligibility with the extra year of eligibility that every player gets from last season. So I think that's definitely a really cool thing. Well, he's actually a senior, I should say. He wasn't able to redshirt in his second season because even though he played 7 games for Georgetown before transferring to Arizona, but he is a senior, so he'll have another year after this. But it's James Akinjo at number 10. Then number 9, we got Jaden Ivy from Purdue. Ivy has been Purdue's best player this season. Purdue was at number 1 for 1 week, but they've been in the top 10 the entire season, having a dominant year, averaging 16.2 points, 5.1 boards, 3 assists, 1.3 steals. Going to be a top 10 pick in this year's NBA draft, most likely as of now. He's had a great season so far. I think that he's the real engine behind the Boilermakers. So he hasn't put up he's put up some great numbers. I mean, 16 points, 5 boards for a college player is fantastic numbers. Don't get me wrong, with 3 assists and 1.3 steals, but some of the other guys there's been some other guys putting up some gaudier numbers that I have higher on the list. And number 8, we have another freshman. We got Jabari Smith from Auburn. Jabari Smith's been the star player for Auburn. Auburn rose all the way up to number 4 this week in the AP poll. Jabari Smith can arguably be the first overall pick in this year's draft. There's some mock drafts that have him being number 1. It's really, I've seen most mock drafts have really varied between Holmgren, Banchero, and Jabari Smith. Have been one of those 3 is going to be the number 1 pick as of now. But Jabari Smith has had a great year for Auburn. 15.5 points, 6.4 boards, 2.1 assists, and 1.5 steals. He's number 8 in my Player of the Year rankings. He's been the difference maker for Auburn this season. They've had some injury issues, had a bunch of guys leave after last year, but he stepped in and has completely dominated for them. Number 7, I got Oscar Shebway of Kentucky. I think that Shebway kind of gets slept on a little bit. He leads all college basketball in rebounding. I mean, he's putting up some ridiculous numbers, 16.1 points, 15.2 rebounds. I mean, 15.2 rebounds is a stupid number in the NBA, let alone college basketball, where you only play 40 minutes, and the game's a lot different too. You can't grab, a lot of the numbers are not going to be as excessive as the NBA is, but Shebway has been amazing this year. He was a huge recruit for West Virginia, never really panned out for them, missed a lot of time, transferred to Kentucky this offseason, and has really found a home with the Wildcats. And He's a menace down low. One on top of the 15 rebounds he's bringing down per game, he's also averaging at 1.5 blocks and 1.3 steals per game. So he's doing it on the defensive end, mostly with 16 points as well. He's updated his offensive game a ton, and you like to see it. So number 7, Oscar Shebway. At number 6, we got Ochai Agbaji from Kansas. Kansas has been tremendous again this year, and Abaji's been their star player. 4-year guy. He's a senior this year, 20.5 points a game. I think that he might end up being a first-round pick this year, and it's all because he stayed for all those years. He's been an NBA prospect the last several years, a borderline first-round pick who's decided to continue to go back. He's always been good on the defensive end, but he completely redid his offensive game, and it's showing. It's absolutely showing. 20.5 points a game. He's shooting 47.3% from 3 this season as well. So I think Agbaji has not only been the star player of Kansas, he's also been one of the best players in the nation. So I got him at number 6 in my top 10. At number 5, now the top 5 gets pretty intense. I think these 5 guys have been the clear-cut 5 best players in college basketball this season. At number 5, the first one, we got Keegan Murray from Iowa. Keegan Murray has been absolutely ridiculous this season. He was a bench player for them last year. He showed a little bit of potential, but I don't think anybody expected him to step in and put up the kind of numbers that he's put up this year. He's big at 6'8" and does a little bit of everything. He's elevated himself to a potential lottery pick in this upcoming NBA draft. He's averaging 24.7 points, 7.9 boards, 1.3 assists, 2.1 blocks, and 1.5 steals. So he's literally doing everything. He's doing everything on the offensive end. He's doing everything on the defensive end. Iowa has had a decent season. They're obviously lost Luka Garza, lost Joe Wieskamp, lost CJ Frederick. So they're not nearly as stacked as they were in years past, but Keegan Murray has stepped up and has been their star player. And I think if Iowa was a consistent top 25 team, they'd be higher than number 5 on. He'd be higher than number 5 on my list. He'd probably be in my top 3 if Iowa was a top 25 team. But Keegan Murray has to be in the top 5 with how well he's been playing. Then number 4, we got Kofi Coburn. Coburn has been absolutely ridiculous. Illinois' star player last year was obviously Ayo Dosunmu, who is now playing the Chicago Bulls. Coburn has stepped in and has completely taken over for them. He's averaging 22.5 points a game, 12.5 rebounds, 1.1 blocks, and 62% from the field. He is really the college basketball version of Shaquille O'Neal. That's the best comparison I can give you. He's mobile, tremendous post moves, athletic. As I said, mobile. He can move tremendously for his size. One of the problems, he was a big recruit coming in his freshman year. He's now a junior, but he was a big recruit coming in for his freshman year. And one of the problems was his offensive game and his post moves and, figuring that out. He was a little bit of a raw project, but he has come a long way. And he has completely redefined his game, has become arguably the best big man in college basketball this year. But number 3, I have who I think is the best big man in college basketball right now, Drew Timme from Gonzaga. Drew Timme having another tremendous season, averaging 16.8 points, 5.9 boards, 2.3 assists, and 61.2% from the field. The star player for the Zags, who are number 2 in the nation now. One of the best players in college basketball last season. He's one of the best players again this season. I think that Drew Timme's got to be number 3, especially putting into effect Gonzaga's success with him being the star player. So I think that's a good one right there. And then the top 2 kind of went over before. You could probably guess who my top 2 is, but in which order is the big question. So obviously EJ Liddell and Johnny Davis are my top 2. I think it's almost impossible to not have a top 2 of those 2 right now. Those are by far the 2 best players in college basketball this season. Those are by far the 2 finalists for National Player of the Year. I would not argue either one, having either 1 or 2, but My personal opinion, I have Johnny Davis at number 2. From Wisconsin, I got E.J. Liddell at number 1. I think what Liddell has done for that Ohio State team, he's averaging 20 points a game, and he's the only player on the team averaging more than 10 points a game. He's averaging 20 points a game, 7.2 blocks, 2.6 assists, and 3.1 blocks. 7.2 rebounds, 2.6 assists, I meant to say, and 3.1 blocks. As a 6'7" forward, might I say, averaging 3 blocks a game. He's an all-around stud, and he does it on both ends of the floor. He's a great defensive player, a superb offensive player, and without him, the National Player of the Year, I think, really has to go to one guy who, it's the MVP award for college basketball. So in my opinion, it's the one guy that if you take off the team is significantly worse. And I think if you take E.J. Liddell off this Ohio State team, they don't just go from not being top 25, they go to being probably one of the worst teams in the conference. I think that's how big of an impact he makes. And then Johnny Davis, on the other hand, has made a similar impact for Wisconsin. Wisconsin ranked 13 this week. Without Johnny Davis, they're probably not even in the top 25 at all this season. He's averaging 22.3 points, 7.4 boards, 2.6 assists, and 1.4 steals so far this season. He's elevated himself to a potential lottery pick, the sophomore. E.J. Liddell is probably going to be a first-round pick, but these are the top 2. Any way you put them, you can definitely argue any which way you want to argue. I wouldn't be opposed to either argument, either E.J. Liddell or Johnny Davis being number 1. But my personal opinion right now, Johnny Davis is number 2, and then E.J. Liddell is number 1. I think E.J. Liddell has just had such a big impact. So once again, before we wrap up the show, my top 10, I got James Akinjo at number 10 from Baylor, Jaden Ivy from Purdue at number 9, Jabari Smith from Auburn at number 8, Oscar Shebway from Kentucky at number 7, Ochai Agbaji from Kansas at number 6, Keegan Murray from Iowa at number 5, Kofi Coburn from Illinois at number 4, Drew Timme from Gonzaga at number 3, Johnny Davis from Wisconsin at number 2, and E.J. Liddell from Ohio State, number 1. That's my National Player of the Year ladder so far. So we'll give you an updated one probably once a month now that we're in January. I'll probably a few episodes down the road, maybe before the tournament or something like that, we'll give you an updated one. But that's my first version of the top 10.